2 years ago, before we arrived on this land, it was completely abandoned for over 20 years. When we told people that we were going to try and bring this place back into an abandoned homestead, they thought we had lost our minds. But now, nearly 2 years down the line, and it finally starts to look like something. Up until now, we've been powering our homestead with a couple of solar panels on our camper and the Bluetti AC500, which has helped us a lot. But as our homestead is growing and our needs are increasing, it's time we finally expand our system and really start using the power of the sun.
Welcome to Central Portugal. Today we're going to install this Bluetti EP600 plus 4 B500 batteries, and we're going to connect them to a completely new solar panel system. But before we get into all the specifics of this system, let's first start by installing the solar panels.
First, I quickly mow the area for the solar panels. Now that the area is mown, I measure out exactly where they're going to come. With a rope attached to a couple of bars, I want to get a better understanding of the rough level I'm working with. Then I place some stakes to know exactly where I'm going to lay down large cement blocks, which are going to form the foundation of the structure. These heavy blocks are normally used in road construction, but they'll be perfect for the base. To make sure all the blocks are going to be level and straight, I dig them a little bit into the ground. Since we barely get any serious frost, we don't have to be afraid of any heaving. Normally, in high wind and exposed areas, you would want to anchor the foundation into the ground to make sure the structure doesn't blow away. But because of the location we decided to place them, this won't be of any concern to us. Then, one by one, I level each block as I go. And I even got a little bit of help with the process. Now that all blocks are in place, and to make maintenance a bit easier for when the solar panels are installed, we decided to place down a wheat fabric. Once the fabric is in place, it's just a matter of making a small incision and cutting out a hole. The next step is to start adding the feet of the structure onto the blocks. These legs came already pre-made in the kit, but essentially they're just two pieces of aluminium, connected with a couple of bolts and nuts.
Perfect.
To attach these legs to the concrete, I simply drill a couple of holes. Now I can insert the concrete sleeve anchor bolts to attach the base of the leg. Once that is in place, we can attach the rest. With all the feet in place, the next step is to add a small bolt and nut on the lower and higher parts of the feet, on which we can slide the railing that will hold the actual solar panels. To extend the railing, we can combine two of them together with a sturdy aluminium clamp. With the first rails in place and before adding the first solar panels, I added a layer of gravel on the weed fabric. Now that the gravel is in place, it's time for the solar panels. To add the solar panels to the railing, we use clamps that slide or click into the railing and are secured with a hex key or Allen wrench.
I will continue straight away. Did you put it down? Let's try it. Yeah, you can let it go.
Initially we wanted to have two separate structures for the solar panels, but in the end we decided to make one long line of panels, simply to optimize the space we have here. With the panels in place, I cut off any excess rail, making sure to keep enough overlap if we ever need to extend it.
That also happens.
The next step is to start laying out the cables that will connect the panels to the inverter and the batteries and hook everything up.
Okay.
To connect the panels to the cables, we use what are called MC4 connectors. I'm not the biggest fan of these connectors because they can be quite tricky to disconnect once they are attached, but all in all, installing these is very straightforward.
Okay, now we have to plug it on the other side.
With the panels all connected, it's time to connect them to the main system.
Alright. Yeah, it's super cloudy. We are charging. So as you can see right now, the solar panels are connected to the Bluetti EP600, which is the sponsor of today's video. Now, unfortunately, when the Bluetti technician came to install this system, we were doing several other projects at the same time. So we didn't get to film anything of how he connected the inverter with the batteries. But from what I've seen, it is pretty straightforward and it's clearly explained in the manual. Very useful, right? Now, I'm by no means an electrician, nor will I advise you on what will be the best system for your setup. So definitely do your own homework before you get anything yourself. Having said that, let's quickly run you down on what this specific system is and how it's going to help us on our homestead. So the EP600 is sold by Bluetti as a whole house energy storage system. Funnily enough, we don't have a house yet, so don't worry if you don't have one either, because you can still use it. The EP600 has a 6000 watt 3-phase output and 2000 watt single phase output. And if that sounds gibberish to you, don't worry, it did for me too. But in other words, it means that we can supply our entire homestead with everything that we're using on a daily basis, as long as we don't exceed the 2000 watt per phase output. Ideally, you would want this to be higher, like let's say 5000 watt or something like that, like is the case with the other system that we have from them, the AC500. This way you can put, let's say, your washing machine, your dryer and your water pump all on the same phase. With this EP600, we will have to put the washing machine on one phase, the dryer on another phase, and then the well pump on, ideally, on the third phase, just to make sure that you don't use more than the 2000 watt limit per phase. Although this morning we did do a test run with our submersible well pump and our laundry machine on one single phase, and combined they nearly used 2 to 3 kilowatt of power, and it didn't cause any problems. While we were doing that, the battery power actually increased because the 12 solar panels of 450 watts each charge more than the appliances we're using. So that's pretty cool. Now, it doesn't have an interface where you can install all the settings and look for the charge or whatever. And for that you will need to download the Bluetti app on your phone, where you can manage and see all the details like how much it's charging, battery levels and more. Right now we have 4 B500 batteries with a combined total storage of about 20 kilowatts. Or in other words, it's very unlikely that we will ever run out of power in this area. With over 3000 hours of sunlight per year here in central Portugal, and where on average even in the winter we have more sunny days than cloudy days, I think we'll be sorted for a while. Now, to use the EP600, we needed to connect it to this electrical service panel, which includes the circuit breakers and the different phases that distribute the electricity to where we need it. But since we've never done something like this before, we weren't too confident in doing it ourselves. Luckily for us, we have two amazing neighbors who happen to know a thing or two about electricity. Meet Stefan and Roberta from CampoFund. They are literally our next door neighbors, and they've helped us a lot with getting a better understanding on how to use the solar power, and they've actually installed this service panel for us. They connected the Bluetti EP600 to all the required wires, the circuit breakers and everything else. Without them, well, we wouldn't have understood how all of this works. So guys, if you ever watch this, thank you. Now, of course, there is still a lot more to do before this system is entirely set up and ready to go, like digging in all the pipes for the electricity cables underground, installing the copper ground bars and properly connecting all of our energy systems to it. So before we will use it, we will disconnect the solar panels for now and get all the bits and pieces installed so that everything is perfectly safe and ready to use. But that is something we will show you in another video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.